What's up, everyone? We are back for another episode of TMP, and my very special guest today is no other than a man that I've been watching, creating pros and champions and Olympias with about 20 Mr. Olympia titles, Mr. Hany Rambod. My brother, thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time, because I know you're a very busy man, and I know it's not that easy to get you to spend an hour, just sitting somewhere without moving around.
Thank you for having me, Dennis. It's been great. We got to see each other at the Olympia, and enjoying catching up with you now. I know it's been crazy. You've been up in Egypt.
Don't mind my eyes, because I know I look kind of crazy right now because I just had both my eyes dilated. So, I've been dealing with this eye issue the last 6 or 7 days. It started actually.
What's going on with your eye?
I don't know. It started in Dubai. I was in Dubai. I was in the elevator, and the elevator had mirrors all around. So, all of a sudden I felt like, something's not here from this side. What's going on? And I felt like something's off. And it's just been getting worse, like a little every day. So now I see like floaters, little black clouds going around. It's just in my left eye. So and I didn't want to go to a doctor over there in Egypt, because we went from Dubai to Egypt, and, I didn't want to. I was like, I'm going to wait till I get home. So as soon as I got home, I called my doctor, and I said, listen, this is what's going on. I need to see an eye specialist. And so thank God they took me in this morning, checked my eyes, dilated my eyes, and I thought it was kind of like a retina tear or even detachment, because I'm looking up on YouTube what that means, and it says a tear in the retina, or it can even be detached, and it was neither. It's too much pressure on my eye, on my left eye.
So what do they say it's from?
They don't know. That's something that we'll have to find out. This eye just has way too much pressure on the eye right now, and that's not good for long.
No, they gotta go figure that out.
She said, we got to check. It's definitely like inflammation. It's a swollen retina. And, by looking at it, they can't see it. They just can check the pressure and can see that it's not torn or not detached. And so now I got to go back in 2 days, and then I got to go to another one who's going to, look at that and do some more tests. And I don't know what it is. I guess I'm old.
Well, hopefully it's nothing serious, man. I know my eyes were good up until about a year ago, and then now all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, you need glasses." And I'm like, "I need glasses." And they're like, "Yeah."
We're at that age, man. I'm 55. How old are you now?
46.
Yeah, so 46 is already old enough to wear glasses, but I just don't want to lose my eyesight. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I don't think it's that serious. Were they tripping? Were they saying like, "Hey, look, this is a serious thing. Like, we have to really
No.
She
just said, there shouldn't be so much pressure on this eye. It's way too much pressure. So she wants to put me on. She's got some drops, some special drops that I have to put in my eye now twice a day, and then recheck again in 2 days, and then go to this other guy who's going to check and find out what the problem is. He said this could be it could be from my body. It doesn't have to be the eye. It's not the eye. It just put pressure on the eye. I have headaches for the last couple of days too, like crazy.
Did you check your blood pressure?
Yeah, blood pressure is. I take blood pressure medication, but the blood pressure can be good. I still have headaches.
Yeah, you gotta go get that looked at, man.
Yeah. So I'm on it. You know what I wondered too? I wonder, when did you get involved in?
When did I?
When did you get involved in bodybuilding coaching? How long?
Well, I started coaching when I was a teenager. So I started competing as a natural bodybuilder. Like, some people have seen those videos of me back in the day. I was 150 pounds, lifetime.
You showed me pictures one time.
What's that?
You showed me pictures one time.
Yeah,
I remember. I think it was a black and white picture or something.
What? It was. If you go to Egypt at the pyramids of Giza, there's some pictures of me up on the obelisk. There's some pictures of me back when I was competing. But I used to do John Lindsay's natural bodybuilding show. And he had one that he did with John Balick that was an Ironman natural back in the day in the 90s. And I was really into bodybuilding right out of high school. In high school, I used to bodybuild in high school, and I was coaching people right when I graduated high school. I was coaching people right when I became I did a big podcast on this. One of my first podcasts about how I started training the owner of 24 Hour Fitness Corporation right when I graduated high school, and I was one of their top trainers. And then I started seeing competitors. I started seeing what they were doing, and then I wanted to compete. Then I started helping them, and I used to learn from what I used to show them from things I learned in books. So Arthur Jones principles, HIIT training, Mike Menzer. Dorian Yates was a big advocate of that kind of training. And then what I would do is incorporate those with people that I was working with at a very young age. And then I also started getting into the supplements. And that's one of the reasons why I went to school and I focused on biology and try to focus on neurophysiology, because I love to understand the inner workings of the cells and how they would take things and work with things within your body. So when I went to college and got my degree in biology with an emphasis in neurophysiology, I was already a bodybuilder, and I was a natural bodybuilder. So everything I did was regarding supplements, natural supplements, and how they can really make your body go to the next level. So that was my whole thing. Mm-hmm. My decision when I started competing as a teenager was to wait on and doing anything, going on any gear, because I wanted to wait. My mom had cancer. My dad had cancer. Mm. So I was always under the direction of myself. I said, I'm going to wait to see where I can go to that naturally. And then until I go in enhanced. It's even worth it. Yeah. So I waited till I was like 23, 24, and I said, I'm going to wait till I'm about 24, 25. After my last show, I tore my ACL, and a lot of people know the story that are from the Bay Area. I went to Mexico. I went there with a good friend of mine named John Whitty. He ended up taking me there as a bonus. I went there with my girlfriend at the time. I tore my ACL at a big nightclub in downtown Cabo San Lucas.
Trying to do what? Breakdance?
Dude, no, I'm going to tell you this story. I thought I was Neo from the Matrix, bro. I'm leaning back. The girl I was dating was 5'10", blonde hair, blue eye girl, and she was dancing on top of me. My buddy John was in the back behind me, and then his wife was right behind me, and I'm leaning back. All of a sudden, pop, my knee cap felt like it went behind my leg, and that was right after my last show. And because I tore my knee, I ended up going to the orthopedic surgeon, and he's like, look, and it was weird because I think this was like a message from God. He said, he's an orthopedic surgeon, and an orthopedic surgeon would normally tell you, go get your knee fixed. I'm going to fix your knee. And he saw the MRI. He says, it's torn. You tore your ACL. And I said, okay, what do I do? And he says, well, you don't have to do anything right now because you have pretty good sized quads. So you could just wait for a while, and then you can decide later. The worst advice, but the best advice I ever got, because all it did now was made me into a coach, because I couldn't train hard enough to be able to get back and start competing again. And I sure as hell ain't going to go jump on a bunch of shit if I'm turning around doing, I'm barely doing some natural bodybuilding. And then now with a bad knee. So because I waited so long, I ended up not competing after that ever again. And I waited and waited and waited. And then my knee became arthritic after years, but all I did was coach and coach and coach. And then my guys, the big breakout guy was Quincy Taylor in 01.
Oh, I remember exactly. Yeah. Cause I gave him the overall trophy at the USA's.
That's right. Cause you were there.
Yeah.
And Jay Cutler came to me and said, hey bro, how's your boy look? And it was before we jumped on stage. It was like during the weigh-ins. And I said, let's go look at him real quick. And he's like, yeah, I want to see what he looks like. And he looks over at him and he peels off his clothes. And Jay looks at me and he goes, in his voice, he's like, he's going to win. And I was like, he's like, what's going to, I said, you think so? He's like, who's going to beat that? Because he's 6'4", 250 and shredded. Yeah. And so,
think about it, 6'4", 250. It sounds like it's no weight, but if you really peel, it looks ridiculous. I remember that.
Yeah, he was ridiculous. I think it was 250 or 260.
Yeah.
But he was peeled. Pictures are on there. We got to find him. There, he looked amazing. And then that was kind of like the onset of then the 2001 USA overall winner I had, the 2002 USA overall winner I had, then 2003 I had a couple of winners. So then it just kept going and going, and then I started working with Phil after he turned pro in 05, and then I had more and more. But
people. working with all those athletes, I said, how time consuming is this, dog? I mean, you got to somehow, and every athlete is a little different, but they all crave attention.
Yes.
So how do you control how much attention and when to give the attention to a certain athlete? Do you have guys that are easier to work with, or do you have guys you kind of babysit a little more? How do you control
always, brother,
how you split your attention?
So what happened was the guys that were the most coachable were always the easiest, because what would happen was the efficiency of the information and the rate that they would absorb information was very cut and dry. Perfect example, Phil Heath. he was coached his whole life as a basketball player. So when I worked with Phil, it was really easy because you would just tell him what to do, and that's it. I think that's why Ronnie and Chad were so good together, because Ronnie came from a coaching background. So he just told Chad, tell him what to do and all that. The hard part was when I started working with people and really focusing on training and nutrition. So it's almost like what you're doing with what Chad's doing and trying to combine the two, because I really wanted to make sure that every aspect of it, that's what was the most time consuming. So I never scaled up. Like everybody knows, I don't work with a lot of people.
Right.
I only work with a handful of people. And it was always like that, even back in the day, and now more so with Evogen. But it's one of those things where that was the hardest thing. And then the personality of people that want counseling. As you know, that what ends up happening is you end up having people that want therapy sessions, and they want to tell you about what's going on with their life, their girlfriend, their wife, all this. And you have to be there to some degree. But at some point, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to have to tell yourself, look, I got to create boundaries, because they'd call you at 1 o'clock in the morning. They would call you at 6 o'clock in the morning. They would call you at all times. And there was a time where, I was always on. Now, because I still do that with a handful of people I work with to whatever they need, but it's really understanding what is the person, how you trigger somebody to get them to do what you need them to do in terms of focusing on their diet and their cardio and to take their training to the next level when you're not with them. Because it's really hard. I mean, think about it. Like, you work with Ramy. How much more do you get out of him when he's with you in person than when he's in Egypt or when he's in Dubai?
Oh, that's a total different ball game.
Right. So it's the same thing with me and Hany, right? But at the same time, if you know you have a connection with that person and they're doing regular check-ins over the phone, sending you WhatsApp, doing this, doing that, then you can know that, hey, look, I don't have to worry about this person going out and eating burgers or having, sushi post-workout because they think that, oh man, it makes me fuller and I'm going to just justify it in my own head, but I'm not going to tell my coach. I mean, so you have to compartmentalize your time and you have to prioritize it so that you work with people that are going to be able to really help themselves by listening to the information you're giving.
Right.
And if you're sitting there just doing counseling session after counseling session, you got to cut bait, because a lot of people do that. And that sucks you into that dark hole of wasted time.
Yeah. I remember talking to you one time. I don't even know how long. It's a long time. I think it was somewhere in California, I think in Santa Monica, the Flex Pro. Mm-hmm. And I remember when you told me, you said, you gotta stop. You gotta cut down because it's too much. It's too taxing. And I think back because, I go through this a lot, not as much as you, or maybe not as long, but I'm telling myself sometimes, how does he do it? I mean, you had Phil. When you start working with Phil, Phil basically, and I'm sure you saw exactly what happened right from the get-go. Okay, so he wins the USAs, he qualifies, he wins his first pro shows, he wins the Colorado Pro. I remember he wins the New York Pro.
He went up against you.
Beat me, yeah, absolutely. And
he went up against you.
And then
I remember you and a bunch of other really good guys, and it was a thick lineup because you were still in the middle of it.
Yeah, it was Kai Green was in there. There was a few guys, But here's the thing: you kept him away from the Olympia for 2 years, even though he was qualified. Right. Was that your decision or was it his decision?
That was my decision.
So you wanted to make sure he's ready. You wanted to make sure he's ready to win the Olympia.
Yes, absolutely.
Was he okay with that?
I'm gonna go ahead and put my other headset in because my AirPods died.
Oh, okay.
But it was my decision in terms of like my plan, but he executed it. But it was one of those things. It was tough because he had to go to Joe Weider with that. Yeah. And that was back in the day when Joe really wanted you to qualify and go do the show.
Right.
So it was one of those things where obviously I spoke to him and I told him, this is what I think. I think you need to sit out because I don't think you're going to be competitive at the beginning. I think you're still too small.
Did you tell him that before he qualified or after he qualified?
I told him that, let me see, he qualified in 2006 at the first show we did was Colorado Pro. Yeah. A week later we did the New York Pro. And
no. The New York Pro was before the Colorado. No, Colorado Pro was 1 year.
No.
Was it both the same year?
Yeah, it was the same year, and they were only like 1 or 2 weeks apart.
Okay.
So because I flew to New York right after that. So I flew to Colorado. I went home to California. Then he went to LA,
and then he did some shoots or some pictures, and then he flew to New York, and then I flew there, and then we had a big issue, and then Thackeray had to help us with food because he had to help because his food that was supposed to be shipped didn't get shipped. So he helped them with food. But yeah, there were back-to-back shows, and after that is when I told him, right? It wasn't before that because there's no point. But after seeing him, and he was just, again, he was so easy because I just told him, I said, look, man, he was 208 or 210 pounds. Okay. He was between 209 and 212, bouncing between those for those 2 show wins. Okay. I told him to go in there and do the Olympia. It's great. It's a prestigious thing, but don't be in such a rush to get your ass beat.
And he had no problem with it. He said, okay.
No, because he said, I want to go in there and I want to make an impact.
Because I'm thinking that because he won 2 shows and there was good guys on that stage, that Olympia caliber, and he beat them, easy. Yeah. So I think maybe, his ego would say, listen, I'm beating these guys now. Why am I not ready to do the Olympia? So, but he listened to you, and at the end, it was the right advice. I mean, he came in at this first Olympia, was it 2012?
No, his first Olympia was 2008.
Oh, sorry, he won in 2010. Right. What am I talking about?
Yeah, so you got to remember. So just a quick chain of events. 06 pro debut, New York, the Denver Pro, he wins. A week later, he wins the New York Pro. The following year, we do the Arnold.
Right, he loses against Dexter. He loses to Dexter. Yeah.
No, he was 5th. He was 5th.
Okay, the next year he did the Ironman and came in so much improved.
That's when I told him that's because he qualified again.
Right.
And I said, look, man, if you can't be in the top 2 at the Arnold, you're not going to mix it up at the Olympia.
I forget this all so long ago already. I mean, it feels like it was, it's been forever. Right.
So that's when he went into the Ironman, and then he came in 8 pounds heavier.
Made a statement.
And then he's made a statement, and then he went up against Dexter. And I'm not going to, you can ask Dexter. He was worried. Because he was
of course he was worried, and you know what? And we all, because I remember I was doing the full flex, I was doing the wrap ups, and I was doing the play by plays. Yeah. And everybody, we all were, because at the Ironman, he had 0 competition. Right. And everybody thought, he's standing next to, he's got a great chance to beat Dexter, and then, but when you saw him next to each other, you saw that Dexter was still bigger than him from the back. You still saw that, Phil can still, and absolutely Phil killed it the following year. I mean, he got better and better. But, I remember that, but I thought he was in after 2010. He already won the Olympia in 2010.
Right. So in 2007, when he turned around and took 2nd, then in 2008, he did his Olympia debut.
Right.
Dexter beat Jay, and then Phil took 3rd.
Right.
And so he was mixing it up. And even Jim came to me and said, ooh, that could have even went Phil's way if it wasn't just that could have, I mean, he was mixing it up really hard between Dexter and Jay that year. And that's the year that right after that, Jay ended up calling me a couple months after he lost. And then I worked with him for 2009 with Jay.
And then, but the question that I had, then Phil wins the Olympia in 2010, first Olympia. Then he comes back in 2011. Now, I'm going to just talk 1 year, but it went 7 years back to back. But how much pressure is it on you? Because, a lot of people think, winning the Olympia, now, I think it's way worse after you won your first one.
100%.
It gets worse every time. How much pressure? How many gray hair did you get from making sure he wins the Olympia?
If you look at Phil Heath and I, we have pictures. They can pull them up on the internet.
Yeah.
I used to be like you when you were young. I had an afro, bro. I had hair. If you see those early FST7 videos, some of them, like early on in 2006, they got pictures of me and Phil. He looks like a baby, right? We both look like little kids. But I had hair, man. And it's just the stress. Of these Olympias. And I mean, it's immense. I mean, not just on the Phil winning, but when I, brought Jay back in 2009, that was my reputation, bro. Like bringing that. I mean, but it's like the stress is.
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else. Every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables? F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on Trifecta.
It just builds diamonds. So you either get crushed or you just become a diamond with that stress. And that's what you got to learn how to be able to handle, because the stress will kill you. I mean, it's one of those things where it's just literally pulverizing. And that's when the fuck up fairy likes to come at night before the show and sprinkle a little bit of that dust, because you start getting a little self-doubt.
Right.
And that's where you have to try to control what you do so you don't overcook things, because, you know, as helping people, you know that a lot of that stuff, you have to really make sure that you know steps ahead what you're going to do with someone's physique and how to be able to try to plan that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the amount of pressure and stress in general.
So, and it gets worse with each win?
Everyone, absolutely, man. It's going to get worse for you now.
Yeah, I felt it, you know, and I felt it just being, you know, on the sideline, but I was like, you know, going through that and you know, Phil, I mean, 2011 and I say 2013 was where he just, the show was over as soon as he walked out. He didn't even have to pose, you know, it was really that dominant. But there were a couple of years where he had to win the show on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, because I kind of went through this, you know, and it's, you know, you're like, when this is over, you're like, I'm done.
So Dennis, do you have a new founded appreciation for what I had to go through now?
Yes. And I tell people all the time, I said, listen, you don't understand, you know, it's not like winning a pro show, you know, that's on a total different level. But we're talking about the Super Bowl here. You're talking about all eyes on you.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And when somebody puts his trust in you, it's eyes on you now. So that pressure is, people don't understand what that means. I mean, it's like there's little things, and not everybody, I think not everybody's ready for this. You know, this is not the easiest thing to do. So that's why I was like, you know, I have a way more respect to see, you know, how time consuming and how many sleepless nights. And even when you sleep, you don't sleep because you still think and you still hope and you're still trying to, you know, manipulate. You're still trying to think what to do, what, you know, plan B's and C's and all kind of crazy stuff. It's ridiculous, man. So let me ask you this though. What was your mindset in 2018 going into Saturday?
Well, 2018 going into Saturday, I'm sorry, my phone is blowing up.
You knew already that it was close, right?
Yeah, on the 2018, you're talking about the year that Phil lost to
right.
Sean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that it was one of those things where you're always trying to chase a better look for the next night, right? You're saying, okay, what are we looking at? Do we need to come in harder? Do we need to come in flat? I mean, I'm sorry, do we need to come in tighter? Do we need to come in a little fuller? So at that point, going back, I guess it's now 3 years. When you go back 3 years and you think about it, I don't know how much we could have really done at that point. Yeah. Because again, the big issue that everybody was kind of focused on was Phil's midsection. Mm-hmm. It was his midsection. It was midsection, you know? So, but if you really broke it down, you go, okay, his back was better than Sean's. His arms were better than Sean's. His shoulders were better than Sean's.
Everything was great. I think Phil was absolutely Phil. You know, it was just, I think, this is my honest opinion.
Sure.
I think because they let it slide the year before,
mm-hmm.
they punished him in 2018 for not controlling the midsection, not controlling it. I'm not saying it was bloated and stuff. He just didn't control it. It's something that I think he could have easily controlled.
Well, I don't think it was easy, because if it was easy, he would have done it. Because believe me, you're talking about a guy who's considered one of the best ever, right?
Yeah,
so it's not like
absolutely, yes.
So if it was easy, the thing is that as you fatigue, and as the fact that he's had 2 now major surgeries.
Was that already in 2018?
Well, I'm sorry.
That was afterwards.
I'm mixing up last year. So when he was there, he was actually getting fatigued in 2018. So in the beginning, you know, he was doing a right job, but as you kept posing, you know, it was one of those things that...
And that's what I mean when I said it could have been controlled, because I think that's something, and I was the victim of that myself.
Sure.
But if I could turn back the time, I know I would be able to control it. And all I had to do is just pose, 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 and pose. Every day, 3 months out from the Olympia, pose 2-3 times a day, and just stand there and try to hold it in. Because if you practice it, you can control it. It's not like you're on stage for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? But I kind of understand Phil's mindset at that point. You know, Phil's going, I'm Phil. You know, I can control it. I said this every time. Every time when I told myself next year I'm going to pose, because I was criticized for it every time. I said next time I'm gonna practice. I'll practice, and I push it out every week more and more until like it was like 2 days out. You know, so I think and looking at Phil's physique and then his condition, he was spot on in 2018. I didn't see anything wrong,
Right.
other than I think they punished him for the for not controlling the midsection.
Yeah.
And then he went through surgeries, of course, afterwards.
Yep.
And that kind of that didn't help at all. I don't know what, and he had to do it twice, right?
Yeah. He had there was 2 different surgeries, and the second one was much more invasive, and it was one of those things he took the 2 years off when he came back last year.
Yeah.
When he placed third.
How did you feel going into last year for his comeback?
I just feel that Phil was his body's conditioning, everything was good, but when you're not able to go 100% with the weights, because you're always going to hold back to a degree because you don't want to re-tear your midsection, you're not going to be able to really lift the weights that you normally lift and get the amount of mass that you normally would, because you do need to be able to do that. It even happened with Ronnie when he ended up injuring his lat, and then the last year when he came back and he had to lighten up the weights. When you have to start lightening up the weights, or you're holding back to some degree, it's going to create
pop
an
disappears,
effect.
yeah.
You know, and you're not. And here's the other thing: whether it's Phil or any champion, you're always competing against different versions of yourself.
Right.
Once you start setting a standard, it's not only the people that you're standing next to that you got to beat, it's other versions, because everybody on the internet has Photoshop. It can turn around and do screenshots and then put them next to each other and say, this was what Ramy looked like in 2019 or 20, and then this is what he looks like in 21. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Phil, they go 11, 13, 18, 16, Arnold, all these crazy looks that he brought. He's always competing against himself.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way our sport is. I mean,
that's how it is, because they're going to take a picture, and you're always, that 12th man that's not on the field is you, and the different versions of you that they're going to turn around. Is he on? Is he this? So it's not fair. It's just part of life, and it's part of the sport.
But how did you feel? That's what I want to know. How did you feel him coming into the 2019 Olympia and making a comeback? And, because you see, Phil, and I remember you mentioned one time that you usually see your guys in person, and you weren't able to do that.
2020, you're talking about 2020 when he came back.
Yes, 2020, absolutely.
Right. How did I feel? You got to remember, man, my dad passed away from Corona.
Oh, really?
I didn't see, So, and he was one of the few people that knew him.
Oh, okay. See, I'm sorry to hear that. I had no idea.
Yeah. So both my mom and my dad were both hospitalized in the first wave in March. And it was a really, really tough time because we all thought the world was going to end, right? So in March of 2020, both of my parents got hospitalized within 4 days apart from one another. So my mom was in one hospital, my dad was in the other hospital. Phil and a handful of other people knew. Nobody else really knew what was going on. And I was trying to run my company while I'm trying to take care of my parents. And again, I'm the one that took them to the ER. I'm the one that dropped them off and never saw them again after that. And so they wouldn't let me back. So I'm trying to do FaceTime. I'm trying to do, so this is early on. So it wasn't in the middle of the prep, but it was that whole situation. Nobody was traveling anywhere. We had just got back in December from from Dubai and from India. Because me and Hany and Andre and my whole crew and Phil, we were all in India together before the pandemic hit. So we were all together, but I hadn't seen him for a whole year. So we normally train together. We see each other. All of that stuff got completely shut down. So that whole year, that was the year that Hany came in 2 days before the show, right? And that was two days before the Olympias. So that whole year, I didn't have any connection with pretty much anybody.
So, but when you saw him for the first time, or let's say when you saw him in Orlando, were you as confident as the other years, or did you think?
No, because I'm not like that, man. I don't get confident. I'm just like, I always have, even when I saw his pictures leading up to it, I know what Phil looks like at his best, right? And he has that explosive 3D look. And at the end of the day, what I was really trying to get to as close to that as possible, but I also knew that there was also, so many months that he couldn't train because of the surgery. I also know that you can only make up so much without being able to go 100 or 110%. And when I say that 110, meaning to get even better than you were the previous years in terms of going even heavier and stronger and being able to do it. So you're always got to hold back to some degree after a major surgery like that, because he was getting ready for a documentary. If he would have tore his midsection and all those things, then also that all goes out the window. So he wouldn't be able to compete if he tore it. He was also shooting his documentary that's getting ready to come out. So he had so many different things, a lot of pressure and a lot of things going on. But at the same time, it wasn't like before. And every time you take an extra year off, like when Jay tried to come back, the year he came back in 2013, I think he was like 7th or something. Yes. And all of those things after an injury, it's always more difficult. Now, if anybody could do it, I know Phil could. And I think that Phil could have been a little bit better here or there, but I think that overall, just the size was just down just a tiny bit because of the fact that he didn't have that, he like balls to the wall.
The trademark Phil wasn't there, didn't show up.
I think he looked great. I think he looked amazing. But do I think that he was 100%? No. And I think that it's really hard to be 100% when you're constantly worried about re-tearing your hernia surgery that just happened. Yeah. So I think it's just under the circumstances, it's one of those things where you just, how do you keep pushing without worrying? I mean, you can't at this level, you got to go balls out, man. Yeah.
My next question is would be a question for Phil. I'm going to just ask you as his coach. Is he coming back ever? Is he done with bodybuilding? What do you think?
I'm going to let Phil answer that, but I don't think Phil has anything else to prove.
Exactly.
As a coach, as a great friend, I mean, 16 years together, him and I. I mean, he's one of my best friends. And one thing is that, does he have anything else to prove?
Nothing.
No.
And that's the thing. He has nothing.
But I'm going to tell you guys all this though. If he does, and he can train to where he needs to, everybody should be on notice.
Oh,
because I don't think Dennis, I don't think people now are starting to appreciate him more now that he's gone. And unfortunately, the same thing now with Sean and all these people. And when you don't see those people on stage for a minute, and then you start realizing who they were and what they did. And I just think that people are starting to really understand what he brought in terms of completeness. Ronnie was a freak. Dorian was grainy. It was a grainy, hard freak. But when you talk about Phil Heath, I think we'll all agree when it comes to how complete he was and how three-dimensional his physique looked.
Unbelievable, Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think that
we'll
now
never see another Phil.
And I think now they're appreciating it more now than they did before.
Because he's not the champion anymore. You know how it is. When you're the champion, especially for so long, people want to see you lose. They can't wait to see you lose. This is just the way it is. I mean, that's why I'm saying the pressure that you guys had to go through every year had to be unbelievable, and I hope I don't ever have to go through this. But now let me talk about someone else.
Okay.
Hany Rambod, the People's Choice, 2-time People's Choice champion. That's somebody you work with, someone I consider as the most dangerous bodybuilder. First year he qualified for the Open Olympia was 2 years ago, 2019. 2019, he placed 3rd in his first Olympia, placed 4th in his second Olympia, and placed 3rd in his 3rd Olympia this year. Let's talk about the Olympia this year. And and we can both be straight honest because, hey, I got nothing to hide. You have nothing to hide.
Sure.
And I know how you feel, but I want to know now, after a month or whatever it is since the Olympia, how do you feel now regarding what happened at the Olympia?
Well, I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit.
You want me to go first, right?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, what do you want to know?
I want to know where. Be honest with me now.
Yes, I am going to be honest.
Be honest with me.
Regarding
where
Hany.
did you have? Yes, where did you have Hany placing at that show?
Okay, I'll be perfectly honest with you.
Yep.
I had him no less than 2nd. And if the judges would have decided for Hany, I wouldn't even have a problem.
If Hany, you're saying that if you
If
be
Hany
okay
would have
if-
won the Olympia, I would have not complained. I wouldn't have complained. Absolutely not. And I'm saying this, I'm looking right in your face. And I think he should have got second. Why did he get third? I'm trying to think, why did he get third? And you can only hear what people say. You know, people say, yeah, his shoulders. I don't think he got third because of his shoulders. Because if he would have got marked down for his shoulders, he would have got 10th, 7th, 6th, whatever. You know what I mean? Because when you remember prejudging, I had him by the way they positioned him in 4th or 5th.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You remember? Didn't you think the same?
Yeah, the way that the call outs were going was really
The
just
way they positioned
bizarre.
him on the outside every time, I was like, they're going to give him 4th or 5th. But then when I look at the score sheets on Friday, he was straight thirds.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very confusing for me to watch prejudging Friday because, like I said, they had him on the outside and they pushed everybody else in. So, but like I said, I think he should have. When you compare him now, let's say, why do I think he should have got second? You know, maybe it's still bodybuilding. You know, size is still a huge factor in bodybuilding. Condition, nobody was even close to him. Not one single person on that stage. Let me think, was anybody else in condition of Hany? I can't think of anybody right now, to be honest. He was, especially Saturday. Even Friday, but Saturday he stood out because he came in fuller.
Yeah, we came in the fuller.
It was an unbelievable package. And I think I told you that after the show. I said if they would have given it to him, I would have been the last one complaining.
Yeah, you did tell me that backstage. You said, if you would have won, I wouldn't
and I
complain.
stand by that absolutely. And I said it last year after the Olympia, after 2020. I said this whole year. I said for this year, Hany is the biggest challenge to Ramy, and not because he's size-wise he can compete with him, because he will never be able to compete with him size-wise.
Right.
But he has that wow factor on a shorter guy. He has a wow factor that I don't see on anybody else. You know. Kind of Nick Walker has that wow factor too a little bit, but he doesn't have that condition. You can still see there's still some years of training that he needs in order to achieve.
Yeah, he just
that.
needs a little more mature muscle.
Yeah,
is what Nick
but he
Walker
has that,
needs.
he's a shorter guy, but he stands out too because he has a wow factor, especially the way he presents himself. He presents himself very well in poses, you know. So, but Hany's, and all year I've followed him and watched him, and it looked like he was on a serious mission. And I'm going to say it again right now. For next year, Hany is the biggest threat to Ramy. I don't think there's anybody else that can threaten Ramy when Ramy is on, okay? Was Ramy as good as he was last year? No. He wasn't. I'll be the first one to admit he wasn't.
Right.
You know, and I'm glad he still won because now he sees, you know, how close it was, especially on Friday, how close it was, and he understands that, you know, you can't just show up, you know, and people don't know, and nobody wanted to talk about this before because I think nobody was trying to make an excuse, but he really didn't train for a long time after the Olympics.
Why was that, Dennis? Why
personal
did he stop
issues, personal
Okay.
issues,
Some stuff going
real
on.
personal. And he literally did not train all the way up till June or July. I was over there. I tried to get him to let's go to the gym. You know, wouldn't go. He wouldn't fit. He didn't go.
Oh wow.
He didn't train. And that March, April, you know, he said he went to the gym a couple of times. You know, sat there, shook hours, hands, and then left. Didn't train.
No injuries or anything like that.
No injury. Has nothing to do with any injuries. No health issues. Nothing. It was literally
Some personal stuff going on.
You know,
Got it.
And personal.
His head wasn't in it because of something else that was going on. in his personal
Absolutely
life.
way. He was at a point where he said, I'm done. He was done.
So let me ask you this: when you saw him, because he came in a little bit after Hany got here, because I tried to get Hany here early,
Yeah.
for that same reason, so
Yeah.
we wouldn't end up having a problem. Do you think that when you saw him, did you know that did you have an oh shit moment when you saw him and you were going to get ready to, you know, I think we were about a month out he came, right?
Yeah. No, it was almost 5 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. So almost 5 weeks. Did you have like an oh shit moment going?
No,
oh,
you know
shit.
why?
Uh-huh.
I thought that the year before when he showed up 3 weeks earlier, he was worse than he was 5 weeks out.
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
So what do you think happened then? Like, is there a reason why you couldn't?
I think the year before when he came in, you know, he was just holding crazy amount of water from the flight, you know. And when he showed up, he was. I was like, that's when I had an oh shit moment in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it was literally just water, and it started, you know, in a couple of days you see him losing all that water, and he started losing all that weight. But this year he was surprisingly, and this tells me how great the genetics that he has. I mean, he started training, he came around so fast.
His body responded.
It's responded like it was. So maybe they had taken this whole time off did help him, you know, in certain things. But to improve, which as an Olympia you should do, you know, there wasn't enough time. So, and I think the goal was just to at least get the same condition, you know, to bring him in the same condition, you know, because he has all the size in the world, you know. That's what we tell us. If he's a little bit smaller, or, you know, it doesn't really matter, you know. So but he understood, and he saw, because it was a tough 5 weeks, you know, because I kicked his ass all day, every day, you know, and started with posing first thing in the morning, 2 hours of cardio, and it was strict. You know?
Yeah, he was doing an hour in the morning, hour at night, right?
Yes, every day, all the way till he was doing cardio Thursday before the show.
Before the show.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's the same thing as last year. He did cardio all the way, because we said we're not changing nothing. We trained all the way till Thursday. He said, and we kept it just like you know, don't change it. Don't give him 3 days sitting in the room thinking about what can go wrong.
Right.
Just keep everything the same, and just keep, you know, the daily rhythm and everything. And it was smooth, you know, it was smooth. But now he knows, and that's why, you know, he is training since the Olympia. He's been training, and, you know, he's getting it together. You know, it was unfortunate, but I'm glad it worked. So, you know, everybody has a year where, I mean, Phil had him, you know. I mean, there was a year or two where people think Phil shouldn't have won. I mean, even though I don't think, you know, anybody.
No, I think it was closer. It's just like Ronnie. There's a couple years where they're like,
you know,
everybody, because they weren't at their best.
Everybody. Jay had it with 2007 with Victor. You know what I'm saying? But everybody pulled it off on Saturday. That's why, you know, that's why didn't they call Phil Mr. Saturday?
They call him Mr. Saturday Night. Mr. Saturday Night.
But how did you feel? How did you feel seeing this athlete, seeing Hany on stage, seeing the way he looks, hearing the crowd response? I mean, the crowd response by itself should already tell a lot. Right. You know, I mean, a crowd just not going to, you know, respond that way to a foreigner just because he's a foreigner.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So how did you feel as a coach sitting there watching prejudging going on? Let's talk about prejudging first, because you felt the same, like, oh, they're pushing him. Where are they pushing him? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? How did you feel?
So first of all, when I saw the individuals come out, I saw Ramy. I saw, you know, I should say, I'm trying to remember what it was. The champion always comes out last.
Last, yeah.
Right? So I'm always waiting to see, okay, well, how is he going to look, right? But so when Hany came out, and I said, okay, wow, he looks really good. He's super conditioned. Everything looks really good. We'll see how the rest of these athletes look, because I'm seeing a lot of the athletes not in the kind of shape that he's in.
Right.
And so I'm sitting here going, okay, now let's see where Brandon looks. I go, okay, Brandon looked like he brought up his legs a little bit, still not super sharp, but one of the guys that definitely had made some improvements, I felt. But I'm like, okay, he's not shredded, but he's not, you know, he's not missing any major body parts, and his legs, which, you know, have always been down, has definitely come up a bit, but we have to see how they compare. Then when I saw Ramy come out, I was like, okay, he's not what he was last year. I said, you know, he looked like he was holding a bit of water. And I said, okay, he's left the door open. So now we have to see, has he left the door open for Brandon or Hany or somebody else? Mm-hmm. Let's see how these comparisons go.
So, yeah,
So in the
but after all, but Ramy was the last one. So who else did you see in the mix other than Brandon and Hany? Was there anybody else
Brandon,
you looked at?
Hany, Ramy. I kind of pay attention to Nick because I thought Nick looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter a little bit, but it was one of those things where Hunter I still thought could be a bit harder, but definitely he's got real good shape. He made some really good improvements. So I was in agreement with where the top 5 were for all of the athletes that were the judges had the top 5. I was really, really, really looking forward to seeing them in the mix. And when they put him aside, and I was like, what's going on?
Did you lose it?
Right? I didn't lose it. No, I don't ever lose it like that. I don't go, oh my God, let me. And I knew that there was some issues, and I said, okay, let me, I'm going to have to figure out what's going on. But in the meantime, let me compartmentalize my own guy, and let me look at these 2 others. I want to look at Ramy and I want to look at Brandon. And I said, I kept looking at Ramy going, he's off. And between the 2, honestly, if I had to pick them because my guy's out unbiasedly, I had Brandon winning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. I said, and again, the scorecard was only off by 1 point.
Right.
So Brandon, after prejudging, was only behind Ramy by 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to remember, I love Ramy. Ramy's a teddy bear.
Mm-hmm.
He's as a person and a friend, I love the guy. But I'm trying to be completely objective at this point. I'm saying, look, his conditioning wasn't where it was. I honestly felt conditioning wise, I had him in 3rd, maybe 4th because of the conditioning Friday night. But because if they want to say because Hany was small, or if they want to say because of shoulders, or because of whatever it is, I'm just looking at these 2 people, and between the 2, I would have said that because he had gone backwards quite a bit. I would say he was about 15% off of what he was the year prior. Mm-hmm. I think he was 15% off, 10 to 15%. And you always want to be as good or better than the last year, right? So that's how I looked at it. And then obviously when you see the scorecard, it was 1 point behind. And then everybody came in when they rejudged. The other thing that I didn't like about prejudging, or I said I'm hope they're going to get rid of, was the whole strobe light.
Oh,
everything.
it was terrible.
I know what Tamer and them were trying to do, and I love you, Tamer, but you guys got to get rid of the strobe lights and everything, because what it was doing is when you backlight people, what it does is it washes them out.
Right.
And so what it does is it gives them a weird halo effect, and then you feel like you're in a nightclub.
Not only
and
that, even the screens, there was just too much going on that distracted me from looking at the athletes on stage.
That's right. I agree. And I think that needs to change next year. And I'm hoping
they should just leave if they have an LED screen, just leave it black for the part of the prejudging. Let's let the judges get a good look.
Yeah, I think what should happen, and if anybody from the Olympias listening to this, go black in the background and then keep the sponsors around it, and then and turn around and do that. And then if there's some different things you can do, maybe on the very bottom with sponsorships, you guys can figure things out.
Right.
But with all of that color contrast, and when you start looking and they start putting oranges, because that's kind of the Olympia logo is kind of like an orangish red. When you start getting some of those colors, what it does is it actually screws up the images in pictures and in video, because the skin depth of the Protan looks very similar to the color, the orangish color in the background. So it actually makes everybody look more washed out too. So you want a better contrast. And that's why the black looks so good, because you have contrast. But it happened with Phil, I think it was like 2015 or 16, where I said, look, dude, the orange made everybody look washed out because they had a big orange screen, and everybody already looks orange from all the color that they have on their skin. So you got to create that contrast. So I think that definitely if they can, the second night didn't have that. And I think that helped things a lot. And then I think they changed some of the lighting. But yeah, so at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on.
So the end of the prejudging,
right?
The final call out. Was it 4?
I believe it was. It
was 4. It was only Ramy.
Five.
Wasn't it only Ramy, Hany? I mean, Ramy, Brandon. Wait a minute.
I can't remember what the last one was, to be honest with you. I can't on prejudging.
Whatever it was, I just remember leaving prejudging thinking, this looks like they have Hany in 4th or 5th. I remember doing a video the next morning. I was like, I didn't understand it, but and then you hear people talking. So what did you think after prejudging?
I just said to myself, look, man, I know what I got to go do. I'm going to go look at pictures. I want to see what we can do to improve. And I'm not going to get there. One thing I don't do is I don't sit there and listen to too many people and too many things online and everything else. I go off of what's worked for me.
Do you get feedback? Do you get judges' feedback?
Sometimes I will. After the Olympia, I usually do at the very end. I'll get feedback. But I knew that he was undersized compared to the other two guys. But I know he had better conditioning than both those guys.
Right.
So what I'm banking on, and this is what makes him so dangerous against Ramy, what Ramy is to size, Hany is to conditioning. So if he doesn't balance out right, that's when it becomes dangerous. And that's why you always say Hany's so dangerous.
Dangerous. Was he lighter this year than last year?
No, he was heavier.
He was heavier.
Yeah, he was heavier. But I think in hindsight, he can be even bigger. And I think that there's to be a little bit bigger without blowing his body out. There's some things that we could do to get him a little bit heavier, which is the food. I think that he can definitely increase his food because he's very, very, the food amounts and the ounces are not very high. And I think that we can increase a little bit to really try to get him to grow into the show a little bit more. And I think that there's some things that after going back and looking, because again, he was with me for 5 weeks, right? And going in there and training and posing at night and doing everything that we did. I just go back and go, okay, I think we can definitely increase some food with him and without blowing out his proportions, because a little bit of weight goes a long way on his frame.
Right.
He doesn't have to be 300 pounds like Ramy, right? So he, 5 pounds on him, is going to look like 15 on someone else.
What was his mindset after the show? How did he feel?
Obviously, he felt good because he won the People's Champ Award, because that's kind of like, even though that doesn't give you the check, the $400,000 check in the Sandow. And obviously he loved the fact that the outpouring of support, so many people were like, we think you should have won. We would have had you winning. So even though it doesn't make it completely better, it does make you feel a bit better saying, hey, look, and people are trading shots and they're posting up pictures of you versus the guy that won or you versus the guy that placed second and doing all of these things. And you're like, wow, I'm really proud of what I brought. And I think he was very proud of what he was able to bring on stage, but he's a person who's eternally hungry. He wants to win.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our goal for him is to win. I mean, he wants to win the Olympia. He wants to take home the Sandow.
I mean, if you're that close, come on. What else could you want?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's and the fans in Iran are fanatics. They're probably the most hardest core fans out there in bodybuilding.
They would go to war. They would go to war. I'm telling you, don't even want to say nobody want to say nothing against Hany because you're gonna get bombarded.
he's got the army.
It's good to see, but at the end of the day, there's still Brandon, who's very dangerous.
Yes, very dangerous, and great bodybuilder.
And Brandon, I thought after last year, he said, I think he's going to go for size and he's going to mess, he's going to blow his condition and he's going to fall back. He did find a good combination of size and condition. He wasn't as hard as he was last year. But he was much fuller and rounder. It looked better. I think it was the best Brandon. And what does he have to do in order to win?
I think he needs to continue to keep bringing his legs up to match up that upper body, because what's happening is as he's growing his upper body, his lower body as he's growing his lower body, his upper body is growing as well.
Exactly.
So there's still this imbalance to his body, and then I think that obviously he could always be harder. And that's one of those things.
But you're a coach. You've been a coach. You've been around the block for 100,000 years. At his age, at this time, after so many years, do you believe he can grow his legs to the point where people say now they match his upper body?
I think that he can still improve. Now, can he match? Because his upper body is so amazing. I mean, it's just one of those things that his upper body is so amazing. So it's, remember Joel Stubbs?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Joel
Crazy
Stubbs had this
best
gigantic,
back out there.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys that arguably had a better back than Ronnie Coleman, right? I mean, it was one of those type of backs, crazy. Right. They're just as good, let's just say, but different. But he had really bad legs because of the fact I believe he had surgeries.
Both knee surgeries, yeah. Both knees were done, yeah.
Right. So all of that things being said, he didn't have those traumatic surgeries or traumatic injuries. So I do think, I mean, he's improving them, but can he get it to the point where it's balanced? I don't think it's going to ever be balanced 100%. I just think that it's just a matter of how can he get more size, but also be conditioned enough without getting him flat so that he can be able to try to make the best physique for him. It's balancing that out. He's going to have to continue to put on size in his lower body, but try to bring a balanced physique. Because if he gets too hard, you know what's going to happen. The first place he's going to flatten out is going to be his legs.
Yep.
Right. So that's going to be happen. So it's always this balancing act that he's going to have to keep dealing with. But I think, I mean, nobody's ever lost the Olympia and won it again yet, except for Jay. In 09.
So are you saying if Brandon comes to you, he'll win the Olympia back?
No. I used to work with Brandon. I worked with Brandon. Brandon's a great guy.
I remember.
But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's now actually, I think, more feasible because you don't have domination like you did before with the Dorian and Ronnie and then Jay or Phil era. I mean, look at how many Jay would have won if Ronnie wasn't around.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, the guy would have went on a tear. And unfortunately, he just happened to be in the era of Ronnie Coleman. And then being able to come in all his best in 09 and being able to set that precedence was this amazing thing. And then Phil went on a tear with 7. And now, though, I think it's much more, there's no better time for someone who had lost to win again, whether it's Brandon or any of these guys. But you also got to remember, some of these other guys are really hungry. Hady's hungry. You got these other younger guys. You got Hunter. You got Nick. You got those guys that are coming up. I think that you're going to see many more Olympias and less domination, I think, coming up. But it just really depends because, again, it could have went either way, I think, with this last show. But again, he did come back drier. Ramy did. I think everybody came in a little bit better the second night. And I think that obviously saved him on the scorecard. You can see that it was no longer a 1-point difference, but it was, I think he got straight first from the judges' card.
Yeah. And I think it was I almost believe that this is going to be a 3-man show again next year for whatever reason, even though that I think that Nick Walker is the future. I just think it's just a little bit early for him. And he needs that quality. He needs the quality. If he gets to Hardy's quality, then Nick Walker is the man to beat. So I'm Ramy. For Ramy, of course, the goal is now to train now and not blow up, but train for quality. And not miss months and months of training and then trying to catch up, because if you know Ramy, he's a nice guy and everything. He's a sweetheart, but he needs confirmation. He needs to see that this is possible. He literally had to ask us almost every other day, "Do you believe I can win?" He's not.
Do you feel like he has the mindset to be able to win? Multiple Olympia titles, 4, 5, 6. Do you think he has the mindset for that?
Ask me next year.
Okay.
Ask me next year. I think he has. He wants to. But I don't know, because you have to prove it.
You're not 100%. Yeah, you're not 100% confident yet.
Yeah, because
of what happened this year.
Yeah, you have to prove it first. So it's easy to say, yeah, I want it bad, I want it 100%. Yeah, but to prove it, Right. So and we'll see. As of right now, he is 100% focused. I can tell. We just have to make sure it's because it's another 13 months to the Olympia. So if everything goes the way it is right now, then I think he's going to be in a very, very good place by next year. And it's going to be a much better. It's easy to be better than he was this year. So I'm looking forward to that. But like I said, I believe Hany is the biggest threat to Ramy. I believe Brandon still has every shot of winning the Olympia. If he keeps, like you just said, if he keeps improving the legs and not get drastically bigger in the upper body, because that way the imbalance will remain the same. And then it's just a matter of, nailing it that day. I think it's just, he saw how close he was, so I know Brandon is motivated, And
Very.
Is he in his 40s yet?
Oh, Brandon's got to be, I think he's got to be in his early 40s, late 30s, early 40s.
That's when it gets harder too. Once you reach your 40s, it's not the same.
Yeah, unless you're Dexter.
Sometimes, even though if the mind is right, sometimes the body doesn't respond like the mind wants to.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you can see that he's definitely, still pushing hard.
I mean, he's still on top. He's second. He's got second twice, 2 years back to back.
Yeah, he's got second twice, and he's won the Olympia before, so he knows what it feels like to win. And I think, being Mr. Olympia, and like I said, it's one of those things where you got to have that mindset, man. I mean, going back to the Hany situation, I mean, Hany is hungry like a wolf, like the old Duran Duran song back in the day. I'm dating us, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things. He is like, he's always on in terms of like just making sure that, like everything revolves around like training. Like I have to get him to back off. You don't have to do 4 plates on walking lunges. You know what I mean?
That was crazy. Yeah.
I mean,
make sure you
he's just like, because his mindset is
free.
always at 100. It's always on. It's always like 100%, always on 100%. And it's like, and he knows not to blow out the proportions. Like that's the good thing. Like he doesn't get fat. He doesn't get out of shape. He doesn't, if anything, he could use a little bit of more weight just in the off season, just for a little bit of additional foundation. Yes. So as we diet down, so we could actually go the other way where he could just up his calories a bit and eats, because he doesn't like to eat. He's kind of like Jay. Jay hated eating. He's not a guy that likes to eat like on a regular program. Right. In terms of just, you get tired of it, and you've been competing for a very long time. But I think with these guys, it's definitely, as even though you got a guy as big as Ramy, you can have a small, hungry guy come over there and be able to take that title.
There's always that one smaller guy that can win. It's always every time. It's been like this forever. Yeah. It's been like this forever. There was William Bonac. Then there was there was always Rich Gaspari. There was always the smaller guy that was threatening the bigger guy the most. It's always the same, and it's always a matter of,
it happened. But remember, that's what happened with Dexter beating Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
All you need is that door to be just open just enough to kick that fucker down.
True. One last thing I want to talk to you about regarding what's going on in our industry. Do you think we should all come together? And when I say all, I'm talking about athletes, active competing athletes, retired athletes, coaches, whatever, and should somehow come up with a plan to maybe, I'm not saying save lives, but maybe protect some of the athletes from, not getting checked up, not getting looked at, Do you think, because I said this for a few years now, that, we should, as just like the IFBB Pro League or the NPC Worldwide send out pro cards or NPC cards, do you think it wouldn't be a good idea to have like a health check at least once a year to prove that you are eligible for a pro card or an NPC card? Do you think that would be something that would help?
I think that there should be discussions regarding doing something.
Yeah.
Now, again, when you look at business, because again, now me owning my own business for many years now, you have to look at both sides of the business and say, what are the different options? You need to deep dive into that. I do think that you need to do that. Now, if that could be the case, maybe that's an option. There might be some other ideas that they can come up with as a committee and pull something together. But I do think that there needs to be more discussion regarding what not to do in this industry. I've been more vocal about it.
Discussions alone, I think, is not going to be enough, because, like I said, there's going to be guys just like, I don't care.
No. I'm saying discussions about implementing something.
Okay, to implement something like health check. Something.
Yeah, there needs to be something done. So that's what I'm saying. That discussion needs to happen. Where what is the feasibility of that? Is it feasible to do, or is it something where, again, there needs to be something.
Yeah.
It's just this can't keep going on, because it's just going to kill the sport at some point. There needs to be something. So I do think that there needs to be discussions regarding that. And then at some point you have to turn around and there needs to be change, because again, we have to be a little bit more vocal about not listening to these gym gurus and these other people that are trying to find solutions in the bottom of a vial.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, guys, I come from a natural bodybuilding background, and I always try to emphasize nutrition and blood work and all of these things ahead of everything else. Because if you try to turn around and focus it and make it all about that, it's going to be a shortcut to a dead end. And I'm telling you, I've been talking about it over and over and over and over again. There's nothing in a replacement of a good diet, cardio, training program. That's it. That should be the basis and foundation.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to find a solution with peptides and all this other shit, that I feel that since a lot of those things have come in, especially a lot of the foreign athletes, they believe that these things are magic bullets, and they're not. They're actually detriments to the sport. That's why I'm wholehearted against them, 100% against these things, because you don't know what the side effects of these things are, because they are just for research purposes. It says it all over the bottle.
Right.
All of these other things, and if you are going to do something that's not designed, or it's got pictures of cats and dogs on it, but it's not designed for humans, not for human use, it says it on there, there's a problem. But because some guy in the gym that looks jacked is telling him this, people are getting this misinformation, a lot of false prophets.
Yeah.
And I keep saying that.
Yeah.
And people need to stop listening to random people. And so, I think that they definitely need to have a discussion and figure out what the solution is. I don't know what it is right now, but I do know that there should be some discussions regarding.
Yeah, we got to be more vocal, because I also emphasize always and tell people, listen, there's life after bodybuilding, and don't forget that. You're not doing this until you're done bodybuilding, which means you're dying. There's life after that, and you want to have a healthy life if possible. You know what I mean? And yes, and I think we need to speak up a little more, and I think that something's going to happen. Something's got to happen in some kind of way. What exactly, I'm not sure, but I was thinking, health checks, mandatory health checks at least once a year for the minimum things, like it's a EKG, a CAT scan, and a comprehensive panel blood work, just to see where some people are, and based off of that, you get your pro card or you get your NPC card. You know what I mean? And what happens during the year? I mean, you can't control everybody. You know what I mean? They can do all kind of crazy stuff. We don't know. But at the end of the day, at least there was some kind of, how many times because there's a lot of people, they haven't been to a doctor in years.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I mean,
if you guys are listening to this podcast,
yes,
and you haven't been to the doctor at least, if you're a competitive bodybuilder, twice a year, okay, at the very least. At the very least, I have my athletes do it even more often, but at very least twice a year, where you're getting blood work done, you're getting everything done. And if you have to own a blood pressure monitor, you should have a glucometer just in case, because at the end of the day, my whole thing is all of these things, people go, hey, I'm getting lightheaded. Well, do you know, is it high blood pressure, low blood pressure? Is it your blood sugar because you went and did something, something stupid? Because, and I just think that these guys just don't really want to take responsibility, because they don't want to know.
They don't want to know.
The ostrich.
They're scared.
They put the ostrich effect. They put their head in the dirt. You got to know what your body's doing. And honestly, it's going to make you a better bodybuilder. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you got to be just as healthy, as you want to be. Like you said, it's all about being older and being able to live. Yeah. There's life after bodybuilding.
Because I think there's nothing better than getting tests, getting blood work done, getting everything done, and everything comes out good. And now you're prepping for a show. I mean, your mind is free. It's not like you're doing this. You're prepping for shows, and you hear somebody else got kidney problems, somebody else got liver issues, somebody else got heart issues, and you're telling the back like, oh, this could be me, or it might be me, but I don't even want to know. Guys, get yourself checked. There's no need to be scared of a doctor. They're not here to hurt you. They're just here to tell you what's wrong with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to go in there and do it on the regular. Don't do it once. Don't turn around and say, okay, I did it once and I don't have to do it again. You got to get it regular checkups.
Yeah.
You got to get regular checkups. So that means blood work, see a cardiologist, and then make sure that you stay on top of blood pressure. Make sure you take care of your body both inside and out. Because what's the point?
And that's big, blood pressure. I mean, every other guy in our industry has high blood pressure. I have high blood pressure from, heritage. My parents, my grandparents, everybody had high blood pressure. I take blood pressure medications for almost 25 years. That's something I know that's there. So, and people don't realize high blood pressure doesn't mean you don't necessarily feel it. No,
that's why they call it the silent killer.
Yeah, I didn't feel it until my doctor told me, hey, your blood pressure is high. You should take something for your blood pressure. I didn't feel anything. So, yeah, guys.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And you guys, make sure when you're eating the sushi and doing 10, 20 grams of sodium a day and you have high blood pressure, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You got to really watch the cheat meals. You got to watch your weight. You got to be, bigger is not always better. Keep your weight down so that you create longevity. These are things that I think are obvious, but obviously they're not.
Yeah.
Because if they were, stuff, wouldn't be as bad as it is.
True.
And I think that needs to be, take it to the bank.
On that note, thank you, brother. I really appreciate you coming on. You kept your promise, because you promised me if I come on yours, you'll come on mine. So I appreciate you, man. I'm looking forward to see what's happening with Hardy this year, and I'm looking forward to a great battle next year at the 2022 Olympia. And hopefully we'll see each other before then, though.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Take care, man. God bless. And I gotta get with you one time when you get on racetracks, because you're a car freak too. So, and I love that stuff. So we gotta connect one day.
We will. I'll send you a text message, and I'll invite you to come out to the track with us.
All right, perfect. All right, brother, man. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Be safe.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you, my friend.
Thank you. Take care.